podcast for everyone passionate about landscape photography. I'm Grant Swinburne, and I'll be your guide as we explore the world of landscape photography through the eyes and lenses of photographers, both up-and-coming and seasoned professionals. I like to dig a little deeper into the way they think about their photography, how it fits in their lives, and where they see it going into the future. Paul Moon has been photographing the Yorkshire Wolds for years, and that depth of time in one place comes through clearly in his work. It's a landscape most people drive past without stopping. Chalk valleys, dry grassland, ancient woodland and wildflower meadows. And Paul has made it his life's work to show people what they're missing. His preference for upright compositions and mid-range lenses over wide angles suits the Wolds perfectly. A landscape defined by twisting forms, shadows and intimate detail rather than grand panoramas. In this episode, Paul talks about his long-term project focused on Millington Pastures and plans for a self-published book, the influences of Joe Cornish and David Ward on his thinking, and how photography has deepened his understanding of local geology, flora and environmental change. He also touches on navigating access issues with gamekeepers and building relationships with local landowners. I hope you enjoy the show. G'day, Paul. Welcome to Landscape Photography World. How's your day been?
Well, very good. Thanks, Grant, and thanks for having me. Really excited to be here and looking forward to chatting with you. But yeah, it's been a good day. It's nice sunny weather. I was out very early trying to get some photos, and I did get a couple, but gave up after it got too high, the sun. So yeah.
Yeah, nice. Well, thank you for agreeing to be on the show. It's wonderful to have you with me, and I'm really keen to explore some of what you've been doing around the northeast of England, mostly, but all further abroad. So why don't we start with the basics? Why is Paul Moon a photographer at all, and why specifically is he a landscape photographer? What is it about landscapes that really grabs you?
I grew up, going back a long way now, when I was quite young, probably around 10 or 11. I watched a lot of nature programs on TV, stuff like that. Fascinated by nature, fascinated by, outdoors. I spent a lot of time outdoors, as a lot of kids did in, this is from the early 70s. So, I grew up around nature, plants. My father was a keen gardener, so plants and things like that, and watching nature. But then the kind of catalyst was my father worked abroad, and one day he came home with a really old film camera, like an SLR, a Russian camera, and I was fascinated by it. I couldn't, looking through the eyepiece and looking through the lens and focusing and stuff. It was just something completely different to me. I'd never seen an SLR to then, but something in me, it kind of hit a nerve, and I just was fascinated. And then obviously through encouragement, buying little cameras for me and things like that. And eventually they bought me an SLR, probably when I was about 12, 13. So I did a lot of film stuff. I would go out into I lived on the edge of a town. So there was woodland, fields. It's quite picturesque around where we lived, and I used to take the camera out, take pictures of various things. Nothing, there was nothing great about anything I did, but I just enjoyed the experience, and I enjoyed wandering around with the camera. Costs wise, it was difficult because you're paying for processing and film, so I think my parents helped out with that. And then I kind of did some went into an art background. I was always a good draftsman. Studied art history. I also studied photography at senior school, and then I went on to graphic design. Obviously used my camera at times. I did black and white film processing at school. Did an evening class in photography. So I was very keen on photography. And then I kind of got into mid-teens, and then it was music and, bands and stuff like that. I play guitar, play bass guitar. So that kind of took over a bit from the photography. The interest went to a different area, but, gradually, I kept the photography going. In terms of landscape, I was, it wasn't something I thought about, it was just what I was outside and I like taking photos outside. I didn't have any experiences, we didn't have the internet. We had, our books, we had National Geographic book of all countries of the world, Africa and, all these. So, I looked through them. I didn't look at them with the intention of thinking, oh, this is what I want to do. It was just, they were there and I used to look at them.
Yeah.
When I started a family, we moved to a small village not far from the town I was in, and it's kind of very picturesque around here. It's in a deep valley. I've got a woodland 5 minutes walk from my front door, which is spectacular. So I kind of started moving, taking the camera out with me when we were going for walks, seeing some of the places that kind of were interesting. And it started to kind of get to me. I was starting to try and do some landscape work. A lot of it was kind of abstract stuff that I was looking at. And then I started to get into the landscape. Film was kind of restricted when you've got a family. It's costs and stuff like that. So, and then I think in 2004, I got a digital SLR, which was, it's 26 years ago, and it's been a long journey. But that was just the spark as well, because you didn't have that. You couldn't just learn, and you could keep learning, keep reviewing, and I was really pleased with that, the way it went. And then I started to explore a bit further afield. In the local area. I mean, we did go on holidays and I used the camera again to go on, and take photographs on my own. But it was more in my local area that I wanted to try and capture. And kind of that's where it's taken me to the last kind of 20 years, is visiting places I know in the local area, finding new locations, and exploring them, going out, early morning or evening time, or even during the day. I'm not a sunrise photographer. It's any time. I'll go out as much as I can.
Sure.
In woodlands, places like that. So but I kind of could go on forever about my local area. I suppose that's probably the next thing to do, is it?
Yeah, well, pretty much. I was going to start to ask exactly that. Do you think your local area has influenced not just what you shoot? Obviously, if you're shooting your local area, you're going to shoot the local things that are there. But do you think it's influenced at all the way that you take your photos? You mentioned,
I would say yes.
Yes. Because you mentioned going out any time of day and so forth. So talk to me a little bit about that and how you think the place that you live and where you've sort of chosen to shoot has influenced what you're doing.
Yeah. So I'll tell you a little bit about the area that my landscape is. It's called the Yorkshire Wolds. Not particularly well known in terms of landscape photography. There's very few photographers who've actually chosen the Yorkshire Wolds as a place to visit. There's maybe 2 or 3 that I know of online who come here. They do, occasional tuition for people and stuff like that. But mostly I was looking at the Yorkshire Wolds because I couldn't find anything. I couldn't see anywhere nobody was doing it. And I thought, well, it's a spectacular area. Why aren't people photographing it? What it is, I'll give you a bit of a geology of the Yorkshire Wolds. It's a chalk upland, so it was created, millions of years ago under a seabed. It's not high. It's the chalks formed a kind of plateau. To the north, you've got a flat valley, which is the Vale of Pickering, which was carved through glacial erosion. To the east, you've got the Vale of York, which is again very flat, carved through glacial erosion. So the chalk kind of sits above that on the east, and then it's a kind of flattens out towards the west, and then kind of rises in an arc round to some spectacular cliffs on the East Yorkshire coast, which are, very tall chalk cliffs. Really interesting place. Seabird colony there. And
You're
that
talking
kind of,
somewhere up around Flamborough Head and
yes, that's the places. But I tend not to go there because I kind of,
that gets shot quite a bit.
I mean, my local area where I shoot is got some interesting geological features, which are the dry valleys.
Yeah.
These were formed when the chalk was, I think, a lot of people, there's discussions about different ways they were formed. Were they fault lines? Mainly there were river valleys cut through the frozen chalk by huge meltwater.
Yeah.
So nobody knows when. It could have been 2 or 3 ice ages ago. It could have been the last ice age. It's all very kind of up in the air when exactly they formed. But since they formed, and the deep and the twisting, ever since they formed, they've never changed. They don't erode. The rainfall, any rainfall soaks into the chalk, so they're very dry.
Yeah.
There's small springs that come out from underneath the chalk on the bedrock, very low down into the valleys. Some of the valleys, but most of them are twist. Some of them probably twist and turn and have tributaries that join them, and they get wider, and then you get these huge wide valleys at the foot, at the edge of the wolds. So these were the areas I was kind of looking at, because the top of the wolds, it's arable farmland, fields stretching for miles, difficult subject, very flat landscape. But these valleys were kind of interesting to me. I was looking at maps, exploring them, trying to understand what was going on, kind of reading about them. Most of them are kind of access land, so you are allowed in them. There's a few that are cut off by large shooting estates, but you stay to the ones that and they were fascinating to me, and they kind of pushed me into the way I shoot, the way the twists and the turns and the kind of angles that the valleys create, the way the light can kind of make shadows in them. So I tend to shoot more upright, looking into the valleys, climbing up to the sides of the valleys, onto the edges of the tops of the valleys. Sometimes in the bottoms, that was, again, it's difficult to shoot within the bottom of the valley, because all you've got is just kind of two sides, and the kind of angles are very geometric. So you've got like 45-degree angles. Some are tight, really tight twists, and you've got really tight slopes. Some are quite smooth slopes. So away at tributary valley, twists and turns, they were what fascinated me, and they kind of threw me in that direction of trying to shoot the landscape, looking into it, using a kind of mid-range lens, not wide angle. You can't shoot the wolds where I live with a wide angle 20mm lens. It just doesn't work. That's for kind of mountains and the large views, but these were kind of more pointing me towards going in close, using the telephoto sometimes, looking at the kind of that graphic quality of the landscape.
Yeah, cool. You mentioned something which I know a lot of people who haven't travelled to the UK probably don't recognise about open access. It was one of the things that first surprised me. My wife is from the UK, and so we've travelled over there quite quite often, and been to the Lake District, Cornwall, Wales, all over the shop. Been up to
Really?
Yorkshire as well, and Scotland and whatever. And one of the things that blew my mind slightly was the ability to. I remember one walk where the actual walk goes literally right past the back door of a farmhouse, through the
Yeah.
farmer's yard with all these sheds and tractors and agricultural equipment and whatever, and out the back through sheepfolds and whatever into a river valley up behind the farm. So this, I guess, tradition or legal position where you can pretty much access most of the land. You mentioned there, though, and I want to talk a little bit about some of that. But there seems to be this kind of considered right to roam almost where you like in the UK.
It's not so much, there is a lot of private land. There's a lot of footpaths. Some areas where there was demonstrations about, moorland being the ability to access these places, and some of these, especially the Lake District, the Pennines, stuff like that. There is restrictions on some places because, you've got grouse moorland, the farm, the landowners are a bit, they don't like people wandering about.
Yeah.
And you've got a lot of footpaths, a heck of a lot of really good footpaths. The local one to me is the Yorkshire Wolds Way, which kind of starts from the Humber estuary near Hull, covers the kind of walks all the way round the crescent of the Yorkshire Wolds and finishes on the coast at Filey. Now that passes my house literally 20 yards down the road here. Just there's a signpost, the Yorkshire Wolds Way, and it goes up through the woodland. So I'm used to kind of these footpaths. There's a few others. There's the Minster Way, the Chalkram Way, and they all kind of dissect in these valleys anyway. But a lot of people who do these walks will see these valleys. But again, and the access to the valleys isn't known as much, I don't think, and people don't use them. I mean, you get a few people who will go in them, but it's very quiet. I find it,
interesting,
strange if I bump into somebody in the valleys.
Yeah,
it's usually a gamekeeper or a farmer. So, but yeah, I mean, the access is good in the UK. Scotland's absolutely brilliant because obviously it's that access is allowed everywhere as far as I'm concerned in Scotland. Obviously, some private properties you don't.
Yeah, I think you'd struggle with Balmoral for.
Well, yeah, exactly. Yeah, well, you probably have the police on you, it's the marksman. But yeah, a lot of the UK does quite well for access and walkers and places, people like that, to enjoy the landscape. So
yeah. Have you ever had situations where you've come into not conflict, but where there's been people sort of say to you, "Sorry, mate, you can't come in here," or there's signs saying, it's just prohibited. How's that sort of affected you?
Well, that's one bugbear that I did have with a gamekeeper. He was just one of the, he was looking after they have partridges and pheasants in these areas. And at the sides of the valleys, there's the fenced off, and they'll have pheasant feeders and all sorts of things going on there. Yeah. And one particular incident where I was walking up the side of one of the valleys, trying to, just out for the day, and he pulled up this lad on a little, utility vehicle, like a off-road thing, and you're not allowed in there. You're not allowed there. I says, well, oh, no, you're not. No, you're near. I don't want to come in here scaring my birds. Anyway, he drove off. I was just so agitated, and then he drove back down to the road, and as I saw him driving back down to the road, I just went straight for him and gave him an absolute touch. I really tore into him, and he came back. I mean, I just walked off in the end. I'd given him such a mouthful. Anyway, he came up to me later on. He says, "Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't realise. I shouldn't have done it." You know, but the problem is you're out trying to take photographs. You don't want to be antagonised by somebody. It just kills the whole mood.
Yeah, it does. It really does change the way that you.
Yeah. So, and I even
spread.
I spoke to his boss, because I know the landowners. I know a lot of the places where I go, I do meet the landowners and the farmers. And some of the gamekeepers I know are absolutely fine, and they'll stop and chat with you. One of the landowners over further north is actually the Garraby Estate, and it's Lord Halifax, and his he owns Garraby Estate. They're very nice people. If I'm walking around, they're always happy to have people walking on their land. They don't, you know, in the access areas, they obviously don't want you walking where you're not allowed, but they've approached me and bought pictures of my work to put up in local halls and things like that. So that was a nice little you know, interaction with the landowners, and they've got a huge estate. They're always, I mean, Lord Halifax took me around when he's in his Land Rover and showed me some of the places where obviously I'm not allowed to go, but he drove me around and we had a look. He says, "Oh, I like this place," and you know, he was showing me all these different parts of the landscape, and a lot of them I've already been in, because obviously I look at maps. I can work out where I'm allowed to go, and I've wandered around, and I've got some really nice photographs from their estate. It's a spectacular area.
Yeah, fantastic. What is it that I guess has influenced you the most in your photography besides the landscape? Is it moments in time? Is it a person? Is it images?
I suppose there's a lot of influences when I was kind of learning about landscape photography. This would be when I started the digital photography. I started to look at online. You could go online, obviously. You could join, like it was Flickr years and years ago. So we started, the communities were forming, and then I'd start looking in books. My wife started buying me books. Probably one of the most influential is Joe Cornish, which is world famous, you know, in terms of English landscape photographers. His works, you know, he's an excellent photographer, some amazing shots. I've met Joe I even went out and took Joe around the world tour one day, which was really nice.
Yeah.
But there's others. I kind of started leaning towards the kind of documentary landscape photographers, such as, you know, like Elliot Porter, Intimate Landscapes. There's English photographers, David Ward. He does more kind of intimate work as well. He won't just focus on the landscape. He looks at, you know, man-made structures as well, so buildings and kind of scenics around, you know, and using abstract and using light in different ways. Paul Wakefield was quite an influence on me.
Yep.
And also then kind of the non-UK photographers, Peter Dombrowski's, and you probably know him well, do you?
I don't know him well. I know of his
Well,
work.
obviously he's not around, but yeah, his work, you know, his work well, I suppose, because obviously he's passed away sadly. But yeah, I mean, Tasmania and his work on Tasmania is absolutely stunning. And that kind of influenced me in what I was doing and what I was looking for in the landscape, and how you don't need hard light, you don't need, you know, sunlight, sunsets and sunrises. You can go out in soft light and find subjects that are just as interesting as a wide view with well lit, you know, with lovely light. You know, you can look at the landscape in a different way in soft light and mist, and that influenced me. But other, you know, American photographers, Ansel Adams, Charles Kramer, a lot of them kind of, I suppose, documentary landscape photographers. I'm not I'm not creative in my photography. It's more trying to show the landscape. I'm not trying to, oh, this is what I can do with the camera. I'm trying to say, look at this landscape. Look at this small, look at these plants. Look at this, structure. Look at these. I'm trying to show the landscape and use my lens to kind of communicate that. It's not about me kind of swinging my camera about and trying to do artistic things, because I'm not that kind of person. I love just looking and finding something that interests me, or the way maybe light works, or coming across a field of flowers and trying to show it in the best way possible.
I'm fascinated by what you've just talked about there in terms of not feeling creative and being more documentary, because one of the questions I often ask is, where do people sort of, quite often documentary photography starts to branch into expression photography. It is more expressive of an emotion or a feeling, as opposed to a purely documentary view of that landscape. And I'm quite interested in the way that you see your own emotion going into your images, without necessarily trying to be, as you said, more creative by, doing ICM or various other techniques and whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know why I've kind of gone down that route. It's not something that's planned. I mean, I don't shoot black and white. I can't get my head around black and white.
Interesting.
It's not. I've not tried, to be honest, because I just like seeing the world in colour. I like my photographs being in colour. I like colours in the landscape. So I don't think, oh, I need to shoot black and white. I need to try black and white. Because I'm really just more focused on just saying, this is what I see. These are the colours I've found. These are the textures I found. And now, obviously, you can move into areas where you might do more kind of contemporary documentary photography, like, Batinsky and, that kind of man-made environments. And I'm not interested, because I grew up with a nature background, with being in the local woodland, being in my local, and then again, when I live in this village where I am, what I'm exposed to is what fascinates me. So I'm not seeking out, street photography. I don't need to seek out abstract ICM or anything. I'm really content with what I'm doing and how I'm doing it. Maybe it's a bit one trick pony, but I don't think.
I don't think so.
I don't think you need, as a photographer, I don't think you need, experiment. If you don't feel right about one thing or another, by all means experiment. And if you find a niche, because I know that some people, I mean, ICM wasn't heard of 20 years ago when I was, there might have been some film photographers who tried it, but digital gave ICM it kicked it off. And then multiple exposure, where people doing, overlays and multiple exposures within camera. All that wasn't heard of, but people have come out with some amazing stuff. And I appreciate what they've done. And I don't think it's, if you want to experiment, other people want to experiment, then albeit, but I found what I want to do, and I'm quite happy to stick with it.
Yeah, nice. I really admire that, and I think, to be honest, you are actually quite creative in the way that you use shape and form in your compositions, and it does two things for me. It does give me a feeling of being in that place at that time, but it also gives me a very good understanding of the way that landscape looks and feels. And to me, I think you've done that in quite a creative way, despite the fact that you might not think that yourself.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose that would be down to my kind of artistic kind of background as well, and my graphic background, that I see these shapes and that's what I want to explore. So
Yeah.
and the landscape that I'm photographing is full of these places, full of these twists, full of these kind of slopes and angles. So I obviously naturally gravitated towards that kind of framing, composition, and also, like you say, it does show the landscape for the way it's formed and the way it is around here.
Yeah.
Especially valleys, yeah.
Yeah. In terms of communication, you talked about that, and that's something that I also like to explore with people, is how successful they feel they've been in communicating what it is that they're trying to communicate, whether it is a documentary style or a more artistic style. How successful do you feel you've been in creating and communicating that style?
I'm not a great social media guy, which is probably not a good thing these days. But locally, I think people recognise what I've done. I've had my work obviously used by the Yorkshire Wolds Way National Trail, which I spoke of earlier, the footpath. They've used my work to show the landscape and the views that you'll get on the walks. I've worked with the Hull and East Riding Tourist Board and Countryside Access Team. I know the Access Team leader, so I used to do walks and we used to go out and take photographers around the world. So that kind of, I've managed to get locally. I think I've got quite a nice following. People do like my work. People see it often. I used to sell greetings cards in local shops and stuff like that. So I was always trying to show the landscape and show my work. I do art fairs and stuff like that and put work in galleries, but it's kind of tapered off a bit. And I don't push myself as much as I want to. Recently, though, the Yorkshire Wolds has been, well, it's been designated. It will be very shortly. It's been designated. It's going to get a designation for an area of outstanding natural beauty, which is a national designation. There's other areas in the UK which have this designation. You've got national parks, basically, which are, the North York Moors, the Yorkshire Dales, the Pennine National Parks, Northam, but the areas of now outstanding natural beauty is kind of, and that's the kind of top of what I want to be. I've always believed it should have that. I'm
surprised that it didn't already.
Yeah, I am. I think everybody kind of knew it would need it eventually. It was just, I think, timing, because there's always somebody's doing something. So there was other ones that were going through. So it's probably taken a fair few years, and it's going through shortly. It's gone to the Secretary of State, I believe, for approval now. And I've actually been working with English Nature, who did the designation. They put all the area that they want to cover. They put it out there, the surveys and stuff like this, and they use my work as well to kind of showcase the landscape on their designation website. So that's nice, and hopefully in the future, provided it goes through fine, which I can't imagine it wouldn't. Hopefully in the future I'll get my work as a showcase, maybe on the AONB website for the Yorkshire Wolds. I'm hoping people recognise it, and
That'd be nice.
it'd be nice to get some of my work out there and show more people. And again, I do a lot of talks, photography clubs. I've done lots of talks with people, and everyone likes seeing what I've done. So, you know, I'm always communicating the landscape and how I see it, and how my work has evolved, and what I photograph.
Mm-hmm. Sounds to me like there's a couple of things going on that could be considered to be a project. Do you deliberately seek out and create projects where you live?
I've not. I mean, the kind of Wolds, that's been a project for me. My work, this is the kind of project, and I've never wanted it to be one photograph says it all. You know, it's got to be a variety of subject matter, a variety of different types of images, just to showcase that whole kind of what's available, what's in the landscape. There is one area which I've kind of more than any others focused on, which is again, it's a valley system. So there's about 7 different valleys that all congregate, all kind of meet into one huge valley. So you've got tributaries, each one has its own name. So these are all dales that they've named. So it's called Millington Pastures. And that's kind of an area where I've tended to go more than any. Each of the valleys has its own kind of look and feel. One valley has kind of mature trees, different areas of woodland and stuff like that. Another valley is very just dry grassland, lots of wildflowers. Another valley has, you know, lots of gorse, which is a kind of scrub bud that grows on it. Trees running down it. There's a river, a small stream in the middle. So I've kind of, and 2 of the valleys are also woodland as well. One's an ancient woodland, and one's a kind of forested woodland. So it's been created maybe in the 70s. So it's not mature trees. They're you know, they are a size, but they're not like ancient. It's not an ancient woodland. It doesn't have the kind of the kind of feel of the ancient woodland. So that's kind of been my project. The idea was that by focusing on that area, I could create a decent range of images that perhaps I might be able to use in the future for a book, which I would really love to be able to do. Again, fine. I prefer to do it self-published. I've kind of put lots of images together. I've even written some stuff, but I keep going back to it. I keep going, backwards and forwards, and it's a long-term project, so it's always going to be kind of moving along until that final day where I say, right, it's ready. And then I've got to, obviously, if you're going to self-publish, you need some funding, so you've got to put it out there.
Yeah.
You've got to find people who want to buy it. Now that's where social media comes in. I'm not great at social media. I haven't pushed myself, and I should really start now. Start to get out there and try and showcase what I've been doing and it's 20 years work,
I'm always fascinated with people's projects, and when they feel you really hit the nail on the head when you were saying, okay, well, now it's done. That decision of now it's done is quite a difficult one, because there is always another photo to take. There is always another piece of that puzzle that you think, I could fit this in. That works. Yeah. How do you go about that culling process and the decisions around, okay, well, yep, project's done. I can wrap it up in a bow and off to do whatever it is it's going to do in the world.
I mean, it's started to kind of taper off. I'm getting older, so I don't get out as much. I don't have the physical strength that I can go out for 4 or 5, 6 hours a day. I do keep finding the odd picture there. But it was more when I first started, I was like, this, I've got to do this. I was out weekends, twice a weekend sometimes. evenings, or maybe 2 weekends a week, evenings a week. I was really kind of obsessed with getting out there and getting the photographs. And over the years, obviously, that's built up quite a large portfolio of work.
Mm.
Now I find, it's been harder to come back with a good shot because of what I've already done. I've already gone to the views. I've already done the kind of great, the best of what I think of that landscape. So finding something new and different has been tricky. Occasionally I will, but it's getting less and less. So I kind of moving on to different places. So I think, I'm nearly there. But the problem I've got is I've got probably about 200 pages of images that I've got to kind of whittle down and try and make into a really, compact book of what I think is going to be, something that people will look at and enjoy. Some of it's not what you would kind of expect to find in a landscape photography. Some of it's kind of odd, I do find things in the landscape that I think that's curious, and I'll take pictures of. So it's not all beautiful scenery. It's not all lovely flowers. Sometimes my mind looks at things and sees, well, that's part of the landscape too. That's not, I want a kind of overall feel for the landscape, and that include things that are kind of quirky, kind of odd, that I've found that, and I'm hoping I would be able to get them in.
Yeah, nice. What is photography, I should say, within your life? Is it a full-time gig, a part-time gig, a hobby? How do you fit it in around everything else in life?
Yeah, I mean, I work full-time at a printers, so I kind of know the print industry well. That's kind of, and I worked in newspapers for a long time. So photography was kind of a hobby. It became kind of a semi-professional in terms of I was working, doing tuition. I would sell prints, sell cards. So it kind of, it's more tapered off now. So it's more hobbyist, but there's always the kind of hope that, perhaps when I get near retirement, I can throw everything into that kind of pushing myself and getting a bit more of a career from it and making that my number one priority. I can't physically now. I've got to drive to a long day, long drive home. Your evenings are taken up, so you don't get as much time as you like. And hopefully, when I kind of retire, then I can start focusing on it more and get out and actually start to also build a reputation. Because again, I don't have the time to kind of publicize myself on social media. And social media's changed so much nowadays. All it used to be is post a picture. Now there's all sorts of things, reels, vlogging, all that kind of comes with extra work. So, when I do retire, perhaps I'll start to take on that kind of things.
Yeah, interesting. I've got to admit, I'm sort of pulling back a little bit on social media activity. I'll post occasionally. Most of what I'm doing now is actually publicising the podcast more than anything. It's really the only regular posts I do. But for me, it's kind of like, because I have retired, kind of, where do I want to take my photography and what do I want to do with it? And I'm still trying to work that out. I'm still doing it. Still a big part of my life, but it also I'm not necessarily wanting to make it purely a career.
Yeah. Are you published? Are you Any books or anything like that?
I haven't published any books of my own, but I have. I've done a couple of exhibitions with other photographers, and I've also done some, or had some stuff published in magazines and whatever. I did a book cover on a Spanish tuition book for some university in the US. It was a picture of Machu Picchu that I took that they wanted, and I said, yeah, sure. I'll sell you the rights to use it, no problem.
Yeah, I mean, I say when it does come to me retiring, I might have not have the energy, but I'm hoping that's.
Yeah.
I kind of think I need to push myself to not so much for my own benefit, but to show the landscape that I've been taking for the last 20 years, and make sure people see it.
Yeah.
And so that's the kind of thing that leave a legacy of kind of work from this area.
What's your most memorable photography experience?
Oh my word, that's tricky, because I've had lots. I've had lots. I mean, so many. I mean, I think of, in terms of visiting Skye, Isle of Skye. Have you been there?
I've not, unfortunately. I've been up through the Highlands of Scotland, Loch Lomond, Loch Ness, up to Inverness, round to Aberdeen, and so forth. But no, we didn't manage to get over to Skye on that.
Yeah, Skye. I mean, it's just
Skye and Harris and Lewis and all of that is just phenomenal.
I don't travel too much. I go family holidays mainly, but that was a trip that me and my wife took on our 25th wedding anniversary. All the family kind of grubbed and said, here's some accommodation, go and have the time of your life. And it was absolutely breathtaking. I mean, the thing was, it was March, early March, so it was quite quiet, but it was 18 degrees centigrade, bright sunny weather. I mean, beautiful weather, but it was not great for photography. We had a couple of kind of mistier days, but I would go out in the morning, early on the morning, maybe we were right below a kind of huge kind of mountain, and there would mountain drive 5 minutes, 10 minutes up the road into some of the scenery, and just spectacular. Went all the way up to Elgol, places like that, and the Currang, walked around that. We spent the whole day there. I mean, again, it was bright and sunny, but just being there. I've come away with about 2 pictures that I like. It wasn't really a photography trick. It was just a holiday as such. But obviously, the camera goes with you. And again, when I go to the southwest coast, which is Cornwall, it's a family holiday. I love being on the beach. I love swimming, sea, and we go, pool dipping and stuff like that. But I'll always take, time on an early morning to go out with the camera, have a bit of time, me time, and kind of get some nice landscapes down in these places. And I've got some nice pictures. And we're going to the Lake District at the end of this month. And again, it's me and my wife. It's about, let's go and enjoy ourselves. Let's do some walking, but I will take the camera. It's not, I mean, a lot of photographers, landscape photographers want to travel. They want to go and take photographs here. They want to go and I don't need to do that, because I've got everything here, and that's what my work is about, is my local landscape.
Yeah.
In going on holiday, and it's not just about I need to take photographs. It's about enjoying the time away. And at the moment, to myself, I will go and sneak off and do some photography, but it's not something that drives me. My local landscape is what drives me.
Yeah, fantastic.
So Skye, definitely Skye.
What about horror stories? Have you had any sketchy experiences?
No, not really. I mean, again, you're getting angry with gamekeepers.
Gamekeeper, yeah.
No, I've not damaged myself. Occasionally, I'll slip and fall, and I'll treacherous sometimes. Some of these slopes are quite steep, but and I think the only injury I really sustained was when I trapped, the little bit between
Yeah.
my thumb and finger. I trapped with tripod.
Yeah, I've done that a few times.
Froze up, yeah, and I was just pouring with blood, and I had nothing. I had nothing in my bag.
Oh.
I don't even remember what I used to just tie it up, and it was just dripping everywhere. But I've never had any serious injuries. I know there's photographers who do some amazing mountain climbing in the most treacherous. Some of the stuff you read, and you think, wow, you've got some guts doing that. I'm that kind of person. I don't, I wouldn't want to put my life and limb at risk for my hobby and for my, for take. So I'm quite happy and content that I can just plod around without too much danger. Wild animals are not going to attack me, I'm afraid. So
yeah. You talked about being in nature quite a bit. What has the practice of landscape photography taught you about nature?
Obviously, when I was growing up, I was always in nature. I was always looking at things. I used to look at stuff like fungus was an interest of mine when I was growing up. But through landscape photography, I've kind of looked more at the geology of the land, how rocks and and especially my landscape was created. I've met geologists, I've met archaeologists. I know archaeologists who talk about some of the features in the land that have been created, in the Neolithic era and places like this. So, that's opened up some, different aspects of what by being in the landscape and by being a landscape photographer, I've learned more about the geology and the history of the landscape, and also plants. I kind of use plants as kind of subject matter and foreground interest a lot of the time. I'll find flowers and plants and wildflowers. And I kind of started to obviously look at what these flowers were, learn about what these flowers were, learn about the trees that I was photographing, learn about, again, stuff like fungus. So it's given me a kind of broader knowledge of what I am photographing. I'm not just like go out there, click, oh, it's a tree. I know what that tree is. I know what that flower is. I'll look it up. I'll research it. I can't remember every flower. But the vast majority of the wildflowers that I know around here, I can recall their names. I mean, some of the valleys, they're grass chalkland valleys, and they are absolutely covered in wildflowers. So you've probably maybe 200 species in one valley, and you can identify the main ones. Some are very hard to spot. I couldn't remember them all. I could never remember that many. But they give me that interest in learning about the fauna and the flora. And also you get to see wildlife. You get to see, animals, mammals, birds, insects, reptiles, all that kind of thing. So it's given me, being out in the landscapes really helped me focus on the whole aspect of the landscape, not just this is somewhere I like to photograph. It's about the feeling you get from being in the landscape as well. How you, the wind on your face, the sun, the rain, the cold, the frost, the snow, and learning about, the sky and the light, the weather systems, all that comes into it, doesn't it? When you're a landscape photography, your learning process, it expands not just about, what setting, what ISO,
Yeah, just about the technical side.
That's immaterial to me. I'm really not the technical person. Yes, I can take a photograph, but I don't. The camera's not the important thing, and the gear. I'm not a gear person. My gear is suitable for what I do. It's more about what am I photographing? How is it changing as well? We have I have a woodland. Literally, I could show you out the window. The woodland there is spectacular. I've been here over 30 years in this house. The woodland changing. The woodland's dying. There's a tree in there which is an ash tree. Well, the ash trees in the north of the whole of England and the whole of Northern Europe are actually got a disease now called ash dying. It affects it's a fungus which attacks the tips of the branches. Once the tips of the branches are kind of died back, fungus can attack the tree, and then that invades the trunk. It kills the tree outright. I've had kind of watched as my woodland, beautiful woodland, it started to die, and there's branches, trees down, twigs everywhere. Millington Wood, which is one of the places in Millington Pastures, that's an ancient woodland. It's like matchsticks have fallen because they're just trees and branches everywhere now because of the ash dieback, and that's a very ancient woodland. I don't know how many years it'll ever take to recover because the ash is not going to be around forever. They forecast it's going to kill kind of 95% of the ash trees in the country. There might be obviously survivors once that disease has kind of died back. There's nothing more. There's no more trees to kill. There's nothing more for the fungus to grow on. So there will be sporadic trees still left. And that's affecting what I see in the landscape. So it's kind of an ongoing process as well, seeing the landscape change.
Yeah. What about when you done being out in the field and you get back home? Are you straight into your edits? Do you leave it for a day, a month?
No, I actually use my work computer because I've got an Apple Mac at work with Photoshop on. So because we're a print company, I'm in the pre-press. So I work with Photoshop, all the packages, Illustrator. So in terms of kind of computer knowledge and stuff, I started on computers when Apple Macs were kind of first invented, which was kind of the late 80s. I was using some of the first Apple Macs. So over the years, obviously, I'm a Mac person. Photoshop wasn't even invented for digital cameras when it was invented. It was for scanning, we'd scan the pictures and then bring them up in Photoshop. So all these digital photographers who come along now and think that's what Photoshop, it wasn't for digital photography, but it goes hand in hand now, and Lightroom. I don't use Lightroom, but I'm a Photoshop guy, and I'll the pictures will stay on my camera. I'll download them at work. I've got a nice monitor set up so I can use it there rather than trying to do it at home. And then obviously I can share it to my photo and share pictures online and stuff like that. So it's largely done work. We've got a lovely, I think it's a 10-color Epson printer at work. So if there's anything that any prints anybody wants, I'll print stuff on there for people. And yeah, it's a nice setup at work. So I don't really need that at home.
What are you going to do when you retire?
I've got one of the Macs at work that I use for my photography. I've been kind of said that's yours if you want to take it home, but I keep it at work. So I'm going to bring that one home soon. And then he's just buying himself a nice Epson printer, hopefully. And I don't sell a lot of prints. I did do a lot of cards at work, but that's kind of tapered off a bit. Postage has got expensive in this country. The sales were dropping. Various places wouldn't stock them. So I went from kind of about 20 retailers down to about 3 or 4.
Wow.
So I've kind of given up with the greetings card side of things. So yeah, when I retire, I'll be looking forward to getting out and about, keeping fit, and doing lots more photography, and then hopefully I'll have some nice editing stuff at home, and yeah, that's the plan.
Working in printing, you should have some pretty good tips and tricks for prepping your image before you give it to a printer or print it yourself.
Yeah.
What are the things that you're looking for to make a good print?
Well, I mean, it's interesting, and because I work in print, a lot of the time I'm working in CMYK. So anything that we receive or anything that we process is all done in CMYK, not RGB.
Converted out of RGB.
So a lot of my photography, and when I'm printing, I'll do conversions to CMYK, because then, yes, I mean, a lot of printers nowadays, especially the Epsons, where you've got 11 colors, you can print RGB files, and but I've got so used to working in CMYK, I kind of know it well, know its limitations in terms of color, space. So I kind of do a lot of conversion, and then I can work on that. Because again, if you're going to produce a book in the future, and all you're working on is RGB files, you'll get the shock of your life, because when it's printed, it's never going to look like something that's on screen. So having a decent monitor setup that I recognize that the CMYK file is going to be print well, I can adjust it to look good in CMYK, and it look great when it's printed. You'll lose bright colors, you'll lose bright purples, you'll lose bright oranges, and these out of gamut colors. Yeah. And the greens are, you kind of they can all a bit merge together, but I've got kind of used to being able to balance out colors. And
greens are notoriously hard to for screen. It's
yeah.
They either look too garishly yellowy green, or they're just too muddy and brown, and they just don't go. Getting that balance right, and the range of colour in the greens in woodland photography is really a challenge.
Yeah, definitely. That's and the great thing about being in the print industry, you know what you're doing, you know where to adjust, what needs to be done. I've kind of got used to downloading my photographs, looking at them on screen, going, I need to do that. Greens are too flat. Pull and push the tones and the tints and things like that, and then the contrast adjustments, and literally I can have 5 minutes. I've got the picture up on the screen, and then I'll do a little dodge and burn where maybe something is distracting in the corners, a bit bright here and a bright patch there. And then I maybe want to bring up something in that's hidden in the shadows a little bit. So I can do dodge and burn and stuff like that. And I've got used to it. I've really got used to my kind of process of processing my work. It's become fairly kind of, an easy thing. There's a few pictures where I've really struggled, and I still don't think I've got there yet. So I keep going back to some, but the vast majority of the pictures that I processed, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, I look at them and go, well, I'm not going to get, I don't think I'm going to get it any better than that.
Yeah. It can be challenging. I looked at some old photos the other day, and I look at the processing and I kind of go, could tweak this, great. If you go in the selective color and take some of the blue out of those reds or some of the magenta out of those reds or whatever, and you can endlessly play around with them and still be happy with it.
I mean, I'm not kind of obsessive about this little bit needs this adjustment here and that adjustment. It's really kind of I make it an easy process. I'm not putting layers upon layers and adjustment layers and this, that, I haven't got the time and I haven't got the patience for all that. And again, some people will do focus stacking. I mean, that's my worst. I just could not imagine taking 20 pictures of one shot and then focus stacking and going in and then, I mean, I've tried panoramic stitching and stuff, which is great, but I don't love doing it. I don't like being on. And the thing is, there's some amazing tools for photographers and digital photographers, and it's great. And I'm, I bet these people love it. The techno. I am not that kind of person. I never really wanted to grow up using computers. I've kind of gone down that route because of what I when I was at college, being an artist, and kind of found my way into graphic design and print production, and that is fine for me. But I'm not kind of the person that uses Photoshop for the sake of and Lightroom and all these amazing softwares. I just don't spend my time doing a lot of work on the processing.
Interesting. What about if someone's struggling to find inspiration? Have you got any advice to help them reconnect with their creative spark?
I think, I mean, there's times when I've, you dip in your creative flow and you find. I think just getting back out and just looking and exploring and enjoying the landscape for what it is, and not kind of putting yourself under too much pressure, because I think that's where the more pressure you put on, I've got to get a good, that can really kind of start to nag at you, and that's not creative. That's not going to help you creative. Jesus, so it's kind of just relax, go out, just enjoy being out, not always be. I need to get a photo. I need to get just enjoy being out. There's nothing like being in nature, just enjoying it, just sitting back, looking at things. I enjoy just being there. I wandered around with the camera this morning. I didn't take many pictures because the light was too bright, but I didn't go alone. That's it. Light's bright, pack up, go home. It was just enjoy the moment and enjoy the morning and enjoy the landscape.
Yeah, nice. What do you see as photography's place in society?
Ooh, these are tricky questions. Yeah. I mean, I think obviously with the kind of advent of AI, photographers are getting kind of a bit worried, obviously.
Yeah.
I can understand that, because like fashion photography and product photography, all this, it's gonna really kind of die a death. But landscape and nature photography, I wouldn't say just landscape, but nature photography, I think, is always going to have its place, because as much as an AI image looks great, it's never going to replace that kind of real look of what photography can do. And again, street photography, you're never going to get AI to kind of replicate the kind of these little magic moments that people have captured. And I admire some of the street photographers for the way they can create stuff. Some of this just, I don't think AI is going to be able to produce them kind of images. So I think photography's still got a valuable place, and perhaps even more so, kind of because
I agree with that. I think a lot of landscape and street And there's a few other genres out there that they are about the experience. You know, event photography, for example. You know, no one's going to want an AI wedding photo.
No. That's impossible. Yeah. Here's the bride's head. Here's the groom's head. Create a library of the wedding photographs. You never know.
Maybe someone's cage.
You never know. But it's not really.
It is about the experience and recording that experience, and you know, it's not always just documenting it. Some, as we talked about earlier, you know, with ICM or some other form of more expressionistic or artistic genres of landscape photography, they're about the experience and the feeling and the emotion, as opposed to, well, here's a pretty image. Yes, it's got to be a pretty image to get anyone to look at it in the first place, but it is actually expressing that experience.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you can't create some of the kind of atmosphere of a real photograph. And yes, you might, I mean, you look at the kind of, you know, these lovely bluebell pictures and, you know, some of the shots. Yeah, I might replicate that, but to the real kind of proper atmosphere of that place, it can only work through proper photography. It's going to mimic it, but you never, you know, the textures and the light and the feeling that it creates. Occasionally I think AI will trick people, but
definitely,
really, if you really close in and go in and look at the detail, you're going to just be like, oh well, that's AI. Yeah, but yeah, so
I mean, it's about the I guess the honesty and transparency of the person that's putting that stuff out there. If you say it's AI, well, fine. And whether or not you want to consider it art per se, I personally struggle with that as I guess a definition, because what is it that's actually created it? Yes, you've typed some words in, but you've taken no more part in the actual creation than typing those words in. That's you know, you created a prompt to say, go and do something, and you might iterate that over time, and you then might take it out and edit it in Photoshop. Okay, you could call that art. Sure. But by and large, because it's generated by code, I don't see how that can be considered art, personally.
No, definitely not. No, it's not. It's interesting how things have moved on and how the world's changed over the last kind of 5 years, hasn't it? Definitely. You can literally go and look in a book, in some of the landscape photography books that I've got. You couldn't open them, and you know, and the quality of the work. You literally couldn't have an AI book. You know, open a book of AI photographs, it would just be like, what? You know, you can't compete with something that somebody's put together, the work they've gone into it, and the quality of that work, and then have something that's exactly the same but created by AI. It's just impossible.
I'd struggle to understand why you would even want it.
I know.
I know somebody out there might, but there's weird people out there in the world that I am. But
I mean, AI has its part. I think there's some so funny and creative things going on with AI, but it doesn't need to be landscape photography. It should stay well away from landscape nature photography. You know, there's so much good stuff out there that it doesn't need AI to let's add a nice sunburst effect. Let's add some nice clouds. It doesn't need that. We don't need that. We just
nature
something natural
is all it needs.
Yeah, it's enough, isn't it?
Definitely. What's the best and or worst piece of advice anyone's given you?
Man, that's That's a tricky one. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what the best advice is. I think best advice. I mean, I've obviously a lot of photographers. I know and I've been out with, and I know I admire and look up to. It's always the kind of slow down, take your time over creating an image. Don't kind of rush it. You occasionally I'll have done that. I'll have maybe rushed a shot and then gone, if I'd have just done that, if I'd have just moved that little bit of twig, or if I'd just pulled away that piece of grass that's just irritating the life out. So that's the kind of thing. Slow down, look hard. And I would give that advice to anyone. Yeah. Don't just put the camera and go click. Set it up, look at it, go, is that where I want to be? Can I improve it? Can I go lower? If I go higher and look down, can I zoom in? Can I step back and zoom in? What's the best framing for this shot that I can do at this moment? So that kind of one thing that I've always people have always said, like, take the time to slow down a bit and you use that time to analyze what you're doing and look at every detail in that frame. What's on the edge of the frame? What's going to cause problems when you bring it up on the screen? So yeah, I think that's good advice, and the advice I would give anyone. What advice? I don't know what bad advice. That's an interesting one. I guess when I say bad advice, I would say any rules that people throw about in photography. So I kind of rules of thirds and things like that I'm not a fan of. Somebody, this isn't in the rule of thirds. Well, it doesn't matter. I think that's taking you down the wrong path. You've got to create an image that works without rules, or without kind of looking and going, oh no, I can't put that there. That's not on the rule of thirds. I think that's one of the worst pieces of advice. Is your pictures have to follow this rule of cross sections in thirds. And again, there's other kind of rules that I wasn't kind of. I was self-taught as a photographer, and I kind of learned myself looking at other people's work as well. I didn't go, oh, this is the rules I have to follow. So then things kind of, make up your own mind what looks nice, make up your own ideas of, but it's got to be balanced. I think the balance is the interesting thing. It doesn't want to be overweighted one way. It doesn't want to be too much going on in one corner, not enough going. Trying to balance out what's going on in the image is probably the most important thing.
Yeah.
Not rules is the worst advice.
Yeah. No, I hear you on that. Are there any other photographers out there that you think I need to be talking to on the podcast?
I mean, there's so many. I have kind of a few favourites. Recently I've been looking at Simon Baxter. I don't know whether you've spoken to him. Simon Baxter.
Yeah, he was done a couple of weeks ago.
I've probably not seen it. Has it been released in that one?
Not yet, no.
Well, there you are. Oh, good. I look forward to that one because Simon's a really nice guy.
Yeah, had a lovely time with Simon. Yeah.
Very thoughtful. Such kind of knowledge. And also another one who goes back kind of a long way with me is Paul Mitchell.
Okay.
Paul Mitchell is he's a graphic designer as well. I think he runs a graphic design company, but he's a woodland photographer. And he's absolutely, one of the top woodland photographers in the country, I would have said. The atmosphere he can create, And he's got so much work, and every time I see stuff from him, it's never of poor quality. It's always a high standard, very high standard. I was hoping. I mean, I know he has been working on trying to get a book out, and again, he's probably like me. He's never got around to it, and he's never finished it, and he's never. And I would hope that one day he would get a book out. So Paul Mitchell.
Okay, I'll check him out. Thank you.
Yeah.
My last question is one that everyone needs to know the answer to. Do you like pineapple on pizza?
Oh no, I don't, to be honest. Do you?
I don't care if it's there or not. If it is there, I'll eat it. Not there, I don't normally order it with pineapple.
The funny thing is, I like gammon steak
I don't.
pineapple. So I like gammon and pineapple.
All you got to do is have a slice of bread and you're there.
I just don't love it. I just don't love it on a pizza, because the thing is as well, I like a spicy pizza, and I like a meaty pizza, and I like a kind of nice, lots of cheese. So somebody offers me that, then great. If somebody offers me ham and pineapple, then, well, no, I'm all right, thanks. But yeah, I do eat pineapple, gammon pineapple's lovely.
Yeah, fantastic. All right, Paul, it's been wonderful talking to you. Thank you so much for being on the show. Where can people find your work?
Well, paulmoonphotography.com, the first place. It's just literally a gallery of world photography. I don't have any of my other kind of UK photographs on there. It's just really literally to showcase the work I do around my local landscape. So paulmoonphotography.com. I do have Facebook, but like I say, I'm not on there very often, and I do have Instagram, but there's links on the website. But yeah, and I really appreciate the questions. Had a good time, wrote a good night. Some things I've come out with that I just pride myself, really. It's nice to kind of get some stuff out there and talk about things. And,
yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much. It's been wonderful getting to know you.
Yeah, and you, man.
Cheers.
And have a good evening.
Cheers. I definitely will. Thanks again for listening to Landscape Photography Worlds. I hope you enjoyed the show. Keep listening, because I'll be joined by some great guests in upcoming episodes. You can find my work in this podcast at grantspinburnphotography.com, along with prints and photography gear. You can also find me on Vero, Photo, Instagram, Blue Sky, and Facebook. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, share this thing, help people find it. It really helps it get seen and heard. I'm Grant Swinburne. Hope to see you out shooting soon.